You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Now, you're aware that some chairmen of some political parties, including the NPP, the CPP, are asking for broader consultations in their appointment of a new electoral commissioner because Dr. Kwadwo Afare-Gyan, the EC boss, will retire mandatorily. He reaches the mandatory retirement age and is supposed to retire in June. Is it June? And so there is some pressure of sorts, and there's a platform that's organized by the IEA and the political party, chairman having meeting and asking that the president should do more consultations, consult the parties, consult other civil society before going through the process of appointment. The question is this necessary? Is this legitimate? Because we know what the constitutional prescription is, that he appoints on the advice of the Council of State. I'm sure you know my views on that, but that's not what is important here. Maybe you check the Daily Graphic, you see my article on it in the coming week. Now, on this one too, maybe I should start with you, Mike. Why has it become an issue that a new EC has to be appointed, and we are asking for the president to consult other parties and other civil society before he does what the Constitution injuncts him to do?
Yes, let me start by saying that the election or the appointment of the Electoral Chairman's Commission, the chairman of the commission.
And the two deputies.
And the two deputies, but for now is the chairman whose issue is at stake, is something that is very fundamental to our Constitution. And so before I even get into the details of this whole issue, which some people think is a brouhaha, I want us to look at our Constitution. If you look at Article 70, 1 and 2, it talks about how certain offices should be filled by the president. And 71 talks about consultation. Then it gives us a very long list of people there who, when you're going to appoint, like for example, Shard Boss and so on and so forth. But peculiarly, when it comes to the appointment of the Electoral Commissioner, then there's a different criteria.
Right.
Okay. Now let us look at this whole scenario.
What you mean by different criteria is that instead of consultation here, he's supposed to do it on the advice of the council.
Very good.
Okay.
And I was going to come into that because sometimes when I come on these programs, I try not to be too illegal. If you're not careful, you just keep reading things.
You are reading a legal document, so let's read it in completeness.
I was going to give them the example, and then the people can understand it even easier.
All right.
As we do layman law. This is the best way these days. That's why in England they've removed all the Latin. In Ghana, I see there's still a lot of Latin in the system. But slowly it will all...
VCRAC CRAB is supposed to be doing that job, removing all the unnecessary...
Yes, it's not necessary.
Right.
But anyway, so it says we have two people who are going to play a football match. One person, by virtue of a certain position, is supposed to elect the referee. And the Constitution says no. If you are supposed to appoint that referee there, then we are going to give you certain extra limitations so that it cannot be only your choice. Now, so that is where the issue of consultation was now changed to advice. A lot of people don't want to accept that the consultation is different from the advice. But the reason why, if you look at 72, and it deals only with the chairman, the deputy chairman, and other members of Electoral Commission, they've been given special treatment because the appointment to that role is special. That's why they were given a special exception. And so that will be done on advice and not consultation. In a nutshell, the advice means that they would advise you who to appoint. Whereas in the other one, consultation means we are consulting each other. But they will advise you, and then you will what? Appoint that person based on the advice you have been given. This is the only thing that we are talking about. And so when, for example,
I'm not sure the constitutional provision or injunction is in controversy.
No.
What is in controversy
I'm coming.
is the call for consultation by the president.
I'm coming to something. Because even my brother Kofi Adams here, I have quotes of him here. Certain things he has said, which I want to show that he doesn't understand what people have been calling for. And I want to give some of those examples. For example, the General Secretary of the MPP called that there should be what? Broader consultations that would impact on the advice before the appointment. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? Let me look at, for example, what somebody like John Bwedu has said regarding this issue. When we look at this whole issue of how Ghanaians are stakeholders.
And John Bwedu is the
national organizer of the MPP. He has also mentioned certain things, and as a stakeholder, I think that he's entitled to give his opinion on some of these matters. Now, Mr. Bwedu said something. He says, we encourage the Council of State to open its doors for more consultations, which should be non-partisan in nature to help rebuild public confidence in the country's electoral process. Now, are we trying to sit here and say that we don't know that there's an unusual set of events that have happened recently? The first and foremost one being the election petition 8 months, where the chairman of the commission was brought into the dock and cross-examined for the longest period ever.
And what was the judgment?
Oh, the judgment came.
What was the verdict of the court?
After the verdict of the court, we'll come to that issue, because we all knew the verdict of the court. You yourself, if you remember, at one point they came to tell us, Supreme Court judges came to tell us it's 6-3, and later they came to tell us it's 5-4 by evening. I mean, I don't even go into those appalling events, honestly, because if you push me there, I will say certain things.
I'm not sure I'm aware of that, but you go ahead.
You are aware?
No, I'm not.
You are aware, my brother. Are you not aware that they said it was 6-3 in the morning?
I have been reading the judgment for myself.
Good.
I have not read 6-3, 5-4. No.
When the judges came to give us the announcement in the 5-minute era, they did not tell us it was 6-3, and later on by communique was corrected to 5-4. Are you not aware as a lawyer? Okay. Yes, you are aware. So let us not try to hide under the table and pretend certain things do not happen in this country. I mean, we will not tolerate these things. But in any case, let us go to the
But that calculation was a simple misreading, which is allowed to be corrected.
Misreading? How can you misread when 9 people are in the room?
Can you go to the second?
So don't try to defend anybody here, because that is not your job. Let's go to the matter at hand. Then we go on to the issue that Mr. Kofi Adams brought up. He said, Mr. Kofi Adams advised all stakeholders, including political parties, not to be seen to be setting new rules in the appointment of the EC boss. How can you tell me, Mr. Kofi Adams sitting here, that if I say that the person who is supposed to advise, before you go and advise, look at some broader consultations before you arrive at your decision to advise? And then Mr. Kofi Adams turns the thing to say that some people want to set new rules. I've just read the Constitution here, unless maybe Mr. Kofi Adams is not familiar with it, that in 72, it says that the Council of State shall.
It says,
shall.
72 says,
yes,
the president shall,
yes,
acting on the advice of the Council of State,
yes,
appoint the chairman.
Yes. So he shall, as you know, mandatory. Mandatory, shall. It doesn't give you may, flexibility.
That's right.
You shall do something. It shall. Of course, talking about the Supreme Court again, the only time Supreme Court in Ghana came to tell us shall is not mandatory. I mean, all of these things.
There's a context. Please, let's not forget about those.
But you can never do that context.
I just think that we ought to be careful about. There was a context.
No, my brother, you see,
you
are the referee here. So you just listen to my opinion. I know that it's a bit tempting sometimes to try to defend.
No, but I have the benefit of reading that judgment also.
Yes, but I have my opinion to say that where shall is shall, the Supreme Court should not try to make it look like context and may, because the people who wrote the Constitution, they know why in certain areas.
Now you are challenging the authority of the Supreme Court to interpret the.
As a Ghanaian, I'm also entitled to my opinion. They may not accept it, but I'm entitled to my opinion.
You're right to criticize the judgment.
I'm here to give my opinion. And my opinion is that when the Constitution provides for shall, they mean business.
Irrespective of the situation.
They don't want no kumsi kumsa.
Okay.
They don't want like a this, like a that. They want the thing there.
I see.
And in this same case of the situation where we are appointing the EC boss, we don't want President John Mahama. We already know, as of President John Mahama, is already a bit indecisive, but that's not even the issue here.
Please.
We know that Obayi himself has said it. A bit. But he said it in his book that one of his major flaws is that he's indecisive. Why are you becoming defensive? You can't take a little jab. It's part of politics. But anyway, going to the issue is that he shall, S-H-A-L-L, shall appoint on the advice. So why is it that when we say that the people who are going to advise should consult before they come to that advice, then Mr. Adams here comes and says people are trying to create new rules? You see, this is misleading.
You are reading John Boedu.
They are now shifting.
You are not reading the chairman of the party and the others who went to the platform and what they said, and that which has been the discussion over the week.
Do you want me to read that? Do you want me to read the whole?
Sorry. It has been that the president should do broader consultation. If you are now saying it is the emphasis is not the president but the Council of State, that's a different issue. But the issue we are discussing here is the call on the president to do broader consultation.
You cannot put me in a situation where I've not talked about certain issues.
There's a fact we are speaking to.
The fact is that John Boedu.
The fact is not John Boedu. What we are saying here is not referable to John Boedu. John Boedu is not a chairman of the party.
When I talk about Supreme Court, they won't let me talk. When I talk about my own party, they won't let me talk. So what am I supposed to talk about? Because you don't know about my own party more than me. So let me talk about my party. I am saying that my party has suggested consultation. We are saying that the consultation is in the context of the advisors. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. Because you see, sometimes certain things can be misreported. Certain things can be explained wrongly. And I'm saying that we have asked, and that's why I gave you the quote from John Boedu. I didn't even want to make it one of the freely reported things.
So we should ignore what.
No, I didn't say ignore.
No, let's ignore what your party chairman said at the IEA platform after the program and the interview he gave. Let's ignore what McMenu also had to say about the president needing to consult, and now let's use what John Boedu has to say.
First of all, wait. As I'm continuing, I'm very happy that your probing is very good because I'm expecting you to be probing Kofi West.
It depends. Good. You will not dictate that.
But don't worry, Samson. As for today, we'll go it toe to toe. Now, the issue is simple. I came and gave you an explanation as to the context in which we meant consultation. Are you trying to tell me that you can tell me what I'm thinking? And you can tell me what I see is the case.
I've made my
point. So good. So let me explain to you the party's position. I am a national officer of the party.
Right.
And the party took a certain decision, which somebody like Kofi Adams doesn't understand. And I'm explaining to him that this is the context in which we meant it. Then I gave him the quotation also of another national officer. What more can a man do? But anyway, so moving on to that area, I don't want people to come and tell us that we are setting new rules, because that is not what we want in any.
You should be wrapping up, really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, if the way I've been interrupted so long, maybe we should add a little bit to my time. I plead with you. Now, there's the main issue of the insider-outsider argument. Very interesting. As you know, there have been a lot of good points raised for or against some of them. We are looking to see how that will be done. We are not particularly concerned about how that will be arrived at, but as far as the consensus process, we are engaged in it. Because you see, the EC, Samson, is under a certain scrutiny at the moment that it has never been before. And anybody who does not accept or see that themselves, they either have an agenda or they want to pretend they are blind. Just after this petition, we saw a situation where a decision by the EC, and I always like to use this word, Dr. Freijan has got a certain nature where he likes to be stubborn and difficult with certain issues. It's a fact about his personality. It doesn't make him a criminal, but it makes him somebody who he doesn't like, as if he doesn't like listening to other people. You remember even after the Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court recommended that, IPAC is informal. And so IPAC itself, there must be legislation to formalize it. That's advice.
That wasn't a recommendation by the court.
The Supreme Court, when it came to IPAC, there were recommendations to formalize it.
Is that not your recommendation, your party's recommendation?
The recommendation in the judgment. That's what I'm saying.
I see.
So if you
I'll check again. I'm not sure about that. I think that's from your party.
No, check on that.
Okay.
So the recommendations on those issues, for example, are such that you can see that there's a certain trend that, hey, let us welcome ideas. Dr. Ferijan, in being very difficult, in particular reference to the recent district assembly elections, you saw what happened? Where Ghana, we lost 317 plus million Ghana cedis, just because you are being difficult, you are not trying to listen to other ideas. And this was an area where MPP, NDC.
In this particular case, Afenyo Makin had prompted him with 3 separate letters. And
So
he said he
many-
was not dignified with a single letter.
I mean, so
reply.
many things that happened. And that's what I said, that apart from the MPP, the NDC, and the other parties, the lawyer himself who wrote all these letters, no response. So what was happening? It is a certain kind of non-consensus building, difficult stubbornness that now Ghanaians have become more wide
Okay,
awake.
all right.
You understand?
Okay,
To
thank
the
you.
process
Thank you.
of electing
Thank you.
the officers.
Sorry, thank you. You'll be shocked if I told you for how long you've been speaking. Now, Kofi, see, he just spoke about what we have come to know, some have come to know to be the character and posturing of Dr. Ferijan. I've had cause to write an article to describe him as intransigent when he denied the journalists the opportunity to vote before the election day itself. Now, on the back of some of these concerns, and where the NPP also feels that it appears that his management of the last election was not the best and has left the EC a bad name. So for that matter, let's begin to widen the process in selecting who becomes the new EC. Don't you think they have a point?
Thank you, Samson. And let me say that in this country we have a constitution and we are guided by the constitution. Any attempt to push anybody, especially for those who have sworn an oath to abide by the constitution, to act according to the constitution, to do any other thing, must be seen as pushing the person to act in an unconstitutional manner. His Excellency the President swore an oath before all of us to do good and to abide by the constitution at all times. And we must encourage him to do so. I am very happy that Michael Kwe today is shifting away from their position of demanding, because even he himself started by saying that you are a player and you are appointing the referee. He himself, that has been their position.
That is why.
Now he is shifting. That they are no longer calling on the president to be the one to do the broader consultation.
No, Samson, this one you must liberate me. I never said that.
Please,
I
please,
said
please.
because of that possibility. That's why the Constitution made that distinction.
When you were,
yes.
when you were,
so
when
you
you were
shouldn't
talking,
put words in my mouth.
You say that you have never called.
Don't worry, the people
On
who are
the
listening
president.
and the people for whom you are here know what's happening. Go ahead.
That they have never called on the president to be the one to do the broader consultation.
Never
He
said
didn't
that.
say exactly that. You go on.
I said the context is not what you
calling.
mean.
They are rather calling on the body that is to advise the president to do the consultation. Then you put him right, that their party chair, their general secretary, their former chairman have all been speaking to the fact that the president should broaden the consultation. That is what they have been speaking.
In fact, those who have put together the platform, the IEA, refer to the president.
That's what I'm saying. That this is a mistake.
Please,
isn't it?
please.
Yes.
How can
the
it be
issue is more on the Council of State. And when I'm here telling you what we are saying,
Please,
then you are trying to go back.
Can you?
Okay.
Because there are many things you
So
said
we have
that I
heard that
disagree.
before you, so don't worry. You have made your point. Let's
That
go.
I disagree, but I just put it down. So you put it down and stop what you are doing. You are not the host of the program.
Okay,
no,
so
I'm just
move on.
correcting what
So
you're
move
saying
on.
about
I
So
said
move
you
on.
are not, you are not the
Gentlemen,
host.
gentlemen, move on.
but
Yeah.
don't refer to me
Last
wrongly.
week,
Thank you.
last week, you had a cause to interview their chairman, and you were forced to play his voice. He was originally denying that he didn't say what Kweku Baku quoted him as having said as far as Baumia's appearance at the various campuses to speak if it will not benefit the party, like they won't allow him. He said he never said so. Now, having played his voice, he now comes back to say if the whole interview that he did, he's not going to talk to Joy and so on and so forth. That is the type of thing Mike is trying to do now. He is pushing us to ignore all others and focus on what John Boydu is supposed to have said. If they had come out to say that before Council of State goes to advise the president to appoint, they should consult broadly, who will take them on? Because that is what the Constitution says, that they will advise. So you are asking the advisors that, oh, before you go and advise, consult. Nobody will take you on. And consultation itself is better to go demanding that His Excellency the President should consult broadly. So are they saying that after the Council of State has advised him on a name, the President should take that name and come and be consulting the parties per the demand?
But you say that we should stick to the Constitution. And yet you still say that if the statement had been the way he put it, then there's nothing wrong with it. The Council of State should be consulting. The Constitution doesn't say the Council of State should consult.
I am saying that if you are asking those who will advise, that before they will give their advice, they should consult on the persons that they want to advise the president on. There's absolutely nothing wrong in asking them to do that. Nobody will fault you.
That's what we are saying.
Please.
Because maybe also 10 of them are actually elected officers.
You see,
and the people who elected them, it's okay to consult them.
You see, yes, the Council of State is very broad. The Council of State has regional representation who are elected by an electoral college emanating from the district assemblies. The assembly itself emanating from electoral areas. So the selection of 10 members of the Council of State is very broad. Then you also have institutional representation. Indeed, it's supposed to include a former Chief Justice, if there is one. It's supposed to include a former police boss.
IGP.
It's supposed to include a former Army Commander or Chief of Defense Staff.
Let's move on. What's
the House of Chiefs
Let's move on.
is represented. So this is a body that is very broad. So it is emanating from various institutions. I don't think that the president of the National House of Chiefs will come to speak to such an important matter without taking views from some of his members. I don't also think that other representation will come to speak to such an important matter without taking views from their constituents. So to be speaking the way we are speaking, I do have a problem. Look, there is precedent. We have appointed commissioners. We have appointed chairman of Electoral Commission before. We have appointed deputy chairman of Electoral Commission before with this same constitution. I don't see any problem that using this constitution to appoint in the past have created.
Events have changed.
Please.
Yes.
Please. I've heard people say, and like your question, that Afarijan, as he put it, is stubborn. Why would they say he's stubborn? Because maybe you present a petition before him, he invites the National Peace Council, they ask you to bring further evidence, you bring it, they assess it and say that no, this cannot delay the announcement of the results. If you have anything, you go to court. that is enough to conclude that he is stubborn.
But Afarijan has always been stubborn, depending on which of you parties win or lose elections.
I'm coming. Professor Jiga of Nigeria is praised as being solid and strong. Do you know that Professor Jiga listened to the APC? The PDP people claim that when they send their petition, he listened to them. But when they were bringing DS, he threw them away because they were doing it on a wrong platform. So when you occupy such a sensitive, serious position, it is not for jokes. If you don't take a certain position, your work will be derailed. Professor Jiga took a solid decision. And I believe that you were watching the Nigerian...
Against the government that appointed him.
Against the government that appointed him. And it made their representative at the strong room there to even disrupt the process for some time. And many persons praised him for the way he handled that gentleman.
The things the NDC has had to say about Afarijan when he has done similar things to
that is why one is therefore surprised that people who want to go the way they are going. I believe that let us not create all these problems that we are creating for ourselves. The Constitution is there to guide the Council of State and the President in the appointment of an EC, a commissioner, and by extension, his chair. We have appointed many persons in the past. The only thing is that we only appointed the chairman once, and he's now retiring. We've had the opportunity to appoint the deputy chair to the commission, because the two former deputies, Aden Zikanga and then the other lawyer, I'm mixing his name, have had to retire.
Safu
Kantanka have had to retire, and we have appointed deputies. This same constitution was used through the same process. So let's just abide by the constitution. Let's just abide. Today this, tomorrow that, or we didn't say the president should be the one to do the consultation. We said the Council of State should be the one to do the consultation in order to be able to advise. The Council of State, in its wisdom, have got the way it has operated and will continue to operate accordingly. These calls, some are even asking that, oh, the nominee should be put to a vote in Parliament, and so on and so forth. He should be vetted. All these, as far as we are concerned now, are unconstitutional. We cannot do something that the Constitution of this country do not provide for, just so because we think that this is the way or that is the way. Look, Afarijan and his members of the commission were all appointed in 1993 by President Rawlings. We are all aware that none of them retired until after 2000. But they pronounced an election against the ruling party then. Some commissioners have to retire, and President Kufuor filled those vacancies. In 2008, that very commission also pronounced a result that was against the ruling party. Indeed, President Mills subsequently have also made appointments. President Mahama has made appointments. And leadership will continue to abide by the Constitution. I believe that they have sworn to protect the Constitution.
Right.
They have sworn to act good with the Constitution, and let's allow the Constitution to work and stop all these calls today, that is this, that is that, and keep changing goalposts. It doesn't help.
Now, Kuku, even before you move to this, the mischief that the call for broader consultation is supposed to cure is what? So that you have someone who will not manipulate the elections. My question is, do you sincerely believe that the electoral system we have today, one man, the chairman of the commission, can change the verdict of the people at the polls?
Well, I'm not too sure about that. You can have a chairman, we're not talking the chairman, of the commission who may, for whatever reasons, do things that are unethical and unprofessional. As to whether it can affect the overall verdict of the people relative to the kind of system we have, I am not too sure about that.
Okay.
And I do not want to proceed on a hypothetical.
All right. Now, there's this group that's issued a press release, a network of social democrats. And they say, among other things, that they are dismayed by the clandestine efforts by the so-called think tanks, civil society organizations, and university professors to stampede the process and desecrate the Constitution under the guise of facilitating a process of, quote-unquote, broad consultations. They say that Article 72 is unequivocally clear on the appointment of commissioners to the EC. So all that is going on is frivolous and disgusting.
Well, that's their opinion. I will proceed step by step.
That statement is signed by Rudolph Awankwa, who is a spokesperson for the Network for Social Democrats.
Yes, look, as far as I'm concerned, at this material moment, Dr. Farajan and his character are not the focal points for this whole discourse. His stubborn nature, that stubborn cat nature. He's on his way out.
So the party should stay away from using him as a focus?
I think he's out of the picture. He's on his way out.
All right.
We are looking at a new chairman, appointment of a new chairman. His history will have to be told properly, fairly, one of these days. Just to throw in his stubborn character, that cat character, was what actually made him contest an attempt to get him to do something unprofessional in 2000. People tend to forget that some soldiers invaded his home, his house, and held his wife hostage.
Right.
At a critical moment when they had to do some declarations, and he refused. That was the stubborn cat in him. He's done that a couple of times beyond that too.
At the point, I was privileged to be one of just about 3 people who had access to him.
Yes, so that is he's a character. We must tell his story in a fair, dispassionate manner. He made, the last time at the Supreme Court, there were little problems. I realized he was fatigued, and it was sad. Some of the slippages, I felt very sad. But that's a great Ghanaian who has done his part, and we ought to tell his story in a dispassionate and fair manner. Now, nobody's going to convince me that we haven't had noises, quote unquote. For me, even if ugly, I'm able to live with them, relative to appointments of members to the Electoral Commission over the years. I was surprised Kofi Adams has suddenly forgotten that when President Kufuor attempted to appoint people to the Electoral Commission because 3 members, 3 had retired or had reached their retirement age, Professor Dumont had written formally to indicate he was retiring because he had reached the retirement age. 2 other ladies had reached their retirement age, and one, Dr. Puni, who was a member, had died much earlier. When President Kufuor wrote through Kudum Pieni letters to them indicating that in line with 72, upon the advice of the Council of State, so and so and so was going to be done, then DC protested. I have all their letters here. In fact, they wrote letters to Obasanjo, copied to President Bush and the British Prime Minister and the African Union and all the rest. They say, I have them all here. And went onto the campaign platform, not the campaign, the public platform, and vigorously protested. We have that history. It's there. It's well documented.
Right.
See, the legal system, the existing regime, is this Article 72 and Section 4.2 of the Act 451. It speaks the same language. That's the existing legal framework for appointments of the chairman of the Electoral Commission. I have spoken on this matter based on my street knowledge of law. I am convinced that the use of the word advice relative to the role the Council of State plays gives that whole provision a certain distinctive character. And for that matter, it dilutes the presidential authority in the appointment process. There's a certain level of dilution, unlike other instances. We have never had the proof, the record of how the process has been done.
Right.
That's where we are challenged.
Right.
Dr. Farajan was appointed in 1993, just after the elections. Okay? The INEC that was put in place by the PNDC ran the first election. But the subsequent elections were run under this constitution.
Right.
and Dr. Farajan became, there wasn't much noise about his appointment. There was a lot of noise about the appointment of the INEC. Indeed, the opposition parties were even insisting that there must be party reps on those things. And come when the IPAC was set up, I have the minutes here, terrible arguments. The opposition parties were insisting that they didn't trust the EC, they didn't trust the composition, they wanted party reps there. With the benefit of hindsight, I'm clear in my mind that that was a wrong proposition we were pushing. Because to have party reps on the EC, I can imagine the chaos that would have occurred. We've come a long way now to a situation where the substantive chairman is exiting. We are looking for a new substantive chairman. It's a new experience in terms of the process. But the only thing that can guide us is this. There's dispute about how to interpret 72. With some saying that because it's on advice. You see, take a look at the 144, the one that does with the Supreme Court justices. The two. It says that other justices may be appointed by the president in consultation upon the advice of the Judicial Council.
Even 71, you see consultation.
Yes, but that one, that other one is triple.
Right.
It says on the advice of the Judicial Council,
right,
in consultation with the Council of State, with the prior approval of Parliament. You see, tight.
Right.
Again, it shows that in that area, too, presidential authority, in terms of the appointment process, is diluted.
It's not substantive.
Yes, it's very diluted. There must be reasons for all these things. Look, because there's a contest out there, my view has been, ultimately, before I do my own, is that we may find ourselves proceeding to the Supreme Court. Because you see, this thing about on advice is been observed more in breach than in observance. We may have just been very lazy about it. We haven't taken it serious. Throughout the constitutional period of the Fourth Republic, I'm not sure we have addressed ourselves seriously to it. And now it's coming to the fore.
Right.
I suspect if we are unable to use consultation and consensus building to deal with this issue, we might as well proceed to the highest court of the land and take an interpretative judgment on this matter. But you see, the spirit.
So Kweku, anybody should be questioning the process, the procedure,
sure,
if they have evidence that it has been wrongly executed.
Yes. Unfortunately, you see, go on. Good.
But ahead of that, we are asking for broader consultations, and that's the debate.
Yes, and I'm saying that the broader consultation is not an animal that should scare us. It's not casting iron in terms of the Constitution. Nothing stops the Council of State from taking views on board. In fact, they do occasionally, from identifiable groups and getting some memorandum coming to their just to inform them. Nothing
Especially
stops
the 10 elected representatives.
Yes.
They have a duty to actually do that.
Nothing stops
the
them.
other 11 appointed by the president who may...
Nothing stops them. Look, nothing even stops the president if he's so minded on his own, voluntarily.
I don't even think the other 11 are appointed. There are some that are
no,
like
there are
president
some,
of the House
no,
of Chiefs.
there are some that the Constitution dictates.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned earlier, a former Chief Justice, a former Chief of Defense Staff, a former IGP, and so on. But the president has a hand in the appointment of 11 others.
Yes, in terms of good governance practice, not compelling in this case, nothing even stops the president from initiating some discussions here and there. Nothing. He would not have committed an act of unconstitutionality. It's at his behest. If he so wishes and he does it, nobody can take him on. Because that is not what is going to inform him that this is the choice, but it helps. And it's also preemptive of any mischief, of any agitation that some people with a certain mindset may engage in, whether the choice is good or not. In any case, we're not going to bring a saint from heaven to come and be EC chairman. It's a human being we're going to put out there. Now, you see why I say the spirit is moving towards some review of what is in the Constitution and in the Act. As part of our own national spirit, is go and check what happened at the Constitutional Review Commission.
Right.
Their report on page 338, paragraph 60. it talks about syndicate group discussions that were held. The one that was held on NCC proposed the retention of the current state of the law on the appointment of members of the NCC, that the president should remain as the appointing authority of the NCC without parliamentary approval. But listen to this. Those are the sessions on the Electoral Commission, the SHRAJ, the Office of Auditor General, the Bank of Ghana, and the Office of Government Statistician concluded that heads and members of the ICBs, that's the independent constitutional bodies, should be appointed by the president subject to parliamentary approval.
Right.
Then it comes to 61 to say recommendations for constitutional change.
Right.
The heads and members of the ICBs should be appointed by the president in consultation with the Council of State, and in the case of the following, with the prior approval of Parliament, the chairman, deputy chairman, and other members of the Electoral Commission and other ICEs.
And government accepted this by the white
I have
paper.
found it quite interesting that chapter 8 of the white paper, government says that is appointment of the heads and members of the independent constitutional and other bodies.
Right.
Government accepts the recommendation of the Constitutional Review Commission that the chairman, deputy chairman, and members of the Electoral Commission, plus other things, be appointed by the president in consultation with the Council of State and with the prior approval of Parliament. The spirit, the mood of the nation, based on this exercise we went through, even the government that is subsisting today, all of us appear to be drifting in a certain direction that seeks to review.
And this process is not complete.
It's not complete. I agree, but that's why I said the spirit. I carefully chose my word. The spirit, the mood, all of us, the sensitivity to a challenging situation. Elections are critical, are delicate, are sensitive, can be potentially explosive. So we all as a people appear to be driving ourselves in a direction that, look, eventually we may have to do something about this. And that is why I'm saying the spirit can guide both the the Council of State and the presidency to say that, look, doing some little consultation prior to taking the advice in order to effect the appointment, you lose nothing. You would only have been in consonance with the spirit that is already manifest in the work of the Constitutional Review Commission's report, as well as the government white paper.
Right. Professor H. Kwesi Prempeh has a very interesting, dimension to all of this. I think his suggestion rather is that instead of, giving this to Council of State and the President and all of those things, yes, let's have Parliament do the process of approval, but let's have a body that will do the process of, first of all, eliciting who should be the best guy to put forward there, in the manner that we do for a justice of the Superior Court, where you have the Judicial Council, Bar Association, every independent professional bodies.
I don't have
input.
I don't have a problem with that. Unfortunately, it's not part of the constitutional review thing.
Right.
But that's why I refer to the 1442
Right.
to show that a broader, tighter process may be in the interest of this country.
And
this is enlightened.
The spirit of what we are doing.
The
all along.
enlightened self-interest of all of us as a country.
Akwesi Champong says, on the advice of the Council of State does not rule out the President from receiving the advice from consulting outside the Council of State, knowing how partisan elections and appointments by the President to the Council have been. If the President is thinking about the nation and the next generation and not the next election, he should have no problem consulting outside the Council to appoint the next EC chairman. Kofi Atta in Cambridge in UK says that regarding the customary practice, the Constitution has seen 4 presidents so far: Rawlings, Kufuor, Mills, and Mahama. The second answer to the problem lies in how the previous presidents made appointments under Article 72. I do not believe that the Council of State consulted political parties prior to advising the previous presidents on the appointment of Article 72 positions. Therefore, it should be the same this time round. Until the Constitution is amended, it should be respected as it is and not amended by default. Spike in Ohio, USA says the new EC boss should be a person who will open up to divergent ideas and not waste national resources. We are sick and tired of unbridled dissipation of scanty national resources by the EC. Thank you very much for those very, very interesting views. And let me share a few more with you. Professor Stephen Kweku Asare says that we must respect the elaborate and nuanced appointment architecture in our Constitution and stop this bad habit of reflexively ceding power to the President. The President makes appointments as both head of state and head of government. When he appoints on the advice of a body, he appoints as head of state and plays a merely perfunctory role. When he appoints in consultation, he appoints as both head of state and head of government. Article 72 is copied directly from the 1969 Constitution. No serious scholar will argue that the then president, who was a head of state but not head of government, had other than a perfunctory role in the appointment of the members of the EC. Okay, well, that's obviously not the argument currently. It's about whether or not he should consult. But this is becoming a second part of the introduction to the argument.
That is the argument.
Now, it's not. It's not the argument.
Not consult, it's advice.
It's not the argument that we have tabled for discussion. And it's not the argument that dominated the media that called for a discussion that we are doing here. I've got a couple more of your messages.